Like I've heard stories in Mumbai that when you have to get your child at school, there's like a proper interview of the parents. Do you do that in Agra?
My husband calls me crazy, or he's always on his toes around me because he's like, I don't know what she's going to come up with next.
I think every husband.
Right? I don't remember the last time I used tan theta sine while I was making my business, or complex numbers or calculus. I think women in general, not just in India, are expected to run a business like they have no child and raise a child like they have no business. There are plenty of upskilling reports that suggest that over the course of next 10 years, 80% of the individuals will have to reskill themselves. About 30% of them don't have the skill set at all that they require to do the jobs that they need to do. And in India, that number would probably be higher.
Hello everyone, welcome again to Life Unscripted, a podcast where we explore and experience the experiences of various people from various industries and who have done so much in their life and have accumulated immense knowledge of the world. I am Sharad Goyal, and today my guest is Sonia Agarwal Bajaj, who's a social entrepreneur with over 13 years of experience in the field of education and skill development. Sonia hails from Bombay and is currently living in Agra, which is again a very good insight. Bombay to Agra, usually you see it the other way around, Agra to Bombay. So welcome Sonia.
Thank you.
Let's explore further and deep dive into today's podcast. So how are you doing, Sonia? Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you so much for having us here, and it's so lovely to have a podcast that inspires more individuals with this.
Thank you so much, Sonia. So now to begin with, so this is what I ask everyone, that why the skills wala part, why the education wala part? Can you take us through your journey, the story, like why did you get into this?
I think for me, I always knew that potato chips nahi bechna hai, and by potato chips I mean like I always knew that I wanted to do something that added more meaning in my life. And I'm not saying that potato chips doesn't add joy, but for me I was looking at something that would give me a greater sense of purpose. So my first startup was actually called White Knife, which gave me immense of that purpose. But it was about 15 years ahead of its time, because in 2011 we were talking about sustainable fashion and sustainable goods and gifting, and nobody was talking about it then. Of course, today it is the center of conversations. So it's a little bit about timing too. I enjoyed educating people about making better choices. So at some point I knew that I liked educating people and creating that sense of awareness early on. I think for me, when I moved to Agra, I was fortunate that I was introduced to the framework, the Japanese framework of Ikigai, which I could very, very honestly say changed my life, because I was always seeking purpose, but I could use this framework to find out what I was good at, what I enjoyed doing, and what I could be paid for. And the center of all of this was actually where I could find my purpose. So, and that's when I realized that education was my calling and that's what I should do. And again, education is a very large industry, right? So there are so many ways that you could contribute to the education industry in itself. And when you realize that 90% of the child's brain development actually takes place before the age of 5, you realize how powerful that age group is. And I felt that why not start where you can really shape hearts, you can shape minds, and you can equip children with the more holistic mindset that we're looking at growing. And that's how I started my journey with early education with Little Chipper International. I'm very proud to have been there. And I think my other why was honestly because when I moved from Mumbai to Agra, it was a big transition for me. And fortunately, me and my husband, we've had access to the best schools in the world. So I went to Dhirubhai Ambani International School. Thereafter, I went to Babson College. My husband went to Doon School, Welham Boys, UWC Singapore. So I think between the two of us, we just assumed that high quality education to ek must hai. And then when I moved to Agra, at that time I realized that there weren't as many early education centers that would meet my fitting or would meet like where I would also be comfortable sending my child. So I think it stemmed from the basic need that I wanted to drive change, and I saw an opportunity there, and it was very purposeful, and I enjoy being around kids. So that was my why.
So like it has been with me, like when I did my software startup.
Yeah.
So I always knew that I want to do something in the ERP sector.
Okay.
But for it to materialize after I got back from my master's education in 2014, I could only get on board with it by 2018. You know, that first step is always the hardest. So finding your passion first takes time. कि हाँ ठीक है, you always have an idea कि ये करना है, but to fixate that idea into something tangible which can be done over and over and over again without feeling like a drag, it took me 4 years. So how about you? How long did it take you to find this passion of yours, the why wala factor?
So why I always knew कि कुछ, like I'm born to do something great. Now call it narcissistic, but like I'm like, so like कुछ तो करके जाना है. But so I always knew my why existed. But I think that my husband calls me crazy, or he's always on his toes around me because he's like, I don't know what she's going to come up with next.
I think every husband,
right? No, but I think that like for me, it's not the luxury bags, or it's the luxury goods. I think my husband's scared of what is my next business idea going to be.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So I think I keep him on his toes, but I also believe that the journey of ideation to execution, in my opinion, should be more practical, and it should not be so research oriented. So I'm not saying go in with blinders, but I have a small 90-day policy. That's a personal policy that I have, that if I have an idea and if I truly believe in it, I will talk to people about it. So they could be people from the industry, of that particular industry, a few potential customers, that, what is the problem, what are you currently using. So I do this like over a few phone calls, and everybody would know somebody in the space. And I would come up with some scratch model. So for me, if within 90 days I can put together a team and it seems doable, if I can agree upon a pricing, then I will spend my next 1 year working towards that project. Otherwise, I scratch that project right there at 90 days.
Oh, that's actually insightful. Now I got to rethink my strategy. It took me 3 years to come up with a couple of products, and now we are just trying to find more people so as to attach and build on the backbone of experiences of the client in delivering great products. So I'm just going to take this 90 days thing in my next product which we are going to come up with. Now, when you talk about your first business, the Little Chipper International, that was like way ahead of its time, and you are in the educational sector in all fairness. So what do you think is the future going to be? What is like a future ready preschool in your opinion?
So I don't think that we were ahead of its time in totality. I think we were ahead of its time and reimagining early education in a tier 2 city. I think that we are blessed that we've been there in the industry for just about 5 years, and for 4 of those 5 years, we've ranked amongst the top 10, and in the last year, we actually ranked number 1 in India amongst the future ready preschools. And I think that I always take that ranking with some skepticism, because I'm like, there are other schools that are doing great, then how did we get there? But when I questioned the authority, and I think there are very few people that question, why am I deserving for this at this given point of time? The answer there was that we were delivering high quality learning, but we were doing that at a significantly more subsidiable pricing.
Okay.
So subsidized pricing. So I think there are preschools that are doing and achieving what I am achieving, but then they're probably charging 5x of that. So I think that's that crack there, that how can you deliver this form of learning but at this pricing? I think that's the crux there. And I feel like, isn't that where India is, right? So affordability will always be the heart of India.
Oh,
right?
Definitely. I mean,
so not everybody. So when you're looking at, we still are a niche school in Agra. So I mean, every parent wants the best for their child, right? Even if that parent is putting their kid, is a farmer putting their child to a Hindi medium school, he or she is putting out the best that is possible for them to do, right? Or if the child is going to an Anganwadi, I mean, even that parent is a super committed and a super honest parent. So I think that for us, we wanted to create a framework that fulcrumed on this principle of multi-intelligence. It's like a Harvard Gardner's theory where we say that ज़रूरी नहीं है कि बच्चे को सिर्फ ABC आना चाहिए या 1 2 3 आना चाहिए. The child should have holistic development. Now, what is holistic development, right? This child should be a gardener also, and the child should be like somebody who's introduced to fashion. So the idea is to explore an arena of areas of learning and allowing child to celebrate any of those areas of learning, because every child learns differently.
So I have a fun question on this. Like, I have heard stories in Mumbai that when you have to get your child in school, there's like a proper interview of the parents,
Okay.
not just the child. Do you do that in Agra?
I actually don't do an interview, I do an interaction. And the reason why I do an interaction is because I want to ensure that the parent understands our school's philosophy. ऐसा ना हो कि वो बच्चा हमारा स्कूल ज्वाइन करे and then they're like, oh, but यहाँ पर तो आप लोग खिला रहे हो, आप सिखा का रहे हो, और आप टेबल कुर्सी में ज़्यादा नहीं बिठा रहे हो, और you know that there are some parents that come with a very fixated mindset, and it's not because they want the wrong for their kid. That's what they've been exposed to, or that's what they've been told is the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, there is a gradual shift nowadays in terms of that Gurukul methodology.
Yeah.
Like, what we talk about or what we read in the media these days is basically that the Britishers, when they colonized India, the first thing they destroyed was the educational system.
Yeah.
From the Gurukul system, they bought the modern system, and they took our Gurukul back to their countries, and they revolutionized their whole education system. So, do you think that in the future, as the educational reforms were done recently, do you think India will be moving towards more of a Gurukul style of learning, which is more experiential and hands-on?
So I'm so glad that you asked, right? So I think when we're talking about the evolution of education system and the role Britishers played in designing the education system in India, I think it's important to realize that during the time that India was colonized by them, we were going through an industrial revolution. Now, what did the industrial revolution really require you to do was batch processing, right? So it required you कि I need to standardize learning ताकि अगर इंडिया से, ऑस्ट्रेलिया से, अफ्रीका से और यूरोप से मुझे सेम इंफॉर्मेशन चाहिए, तो how can I standardize that education system across all my British territories? So there was a standardization that came in. So even if you look at the grading system, it's like कि जैसे वो product में लिखा रहता है, this is A quality product, B quality product, C quality product. That is how the grading system was also done, right? But I think now when you're talking about the Gurukul system was intimate. It focused on holistic development. It focused on this multi-intelligence approach that we just spoke about. It spoke about bringing you closer to nature. And there are plenty of nature schools that are opening up in the US, in Europe. It spoke about you developing as an individual. And I think that that experience-based learning or that intimate learning or small group learning is definitely taking a comeback. So we have to be super grateful for the education policy that's come in 2020, because I think what it has done is that it's in many which ways taken the 5 Panchakotas and that if you look at it and you study it, it actually follows the Maslow's need of hierarchy. So it talks about the child's safety at school, it talks about the child's requirements for security, its food, its basic needs. Then it moves towards exploring things outside which will help them self-actualize their desires or to explore other aspects of them or their creativity. So I think, I don't know whether Maslow got inspired by our scriptures or we have now gone back and gotten inspired by them. So that's plenty of room for debate there. But I think that definitely the Indian education system is moving in the right direction where again the STEM education, which is no longer STEM, so STEM is science, technology, engineering and mathematics. Now that has been evolved and transformed to called STEAM, which is with the integration of art. So now it's called STEM, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics.
Okay.
And there are more than 10,000 STEM labs or STEAM labs that have opened up in the last 2 years. And I'm not talking about the STEM or STEAM labs which are just available at your top tier schools. They are now available with your mass schools. Now that's progression. And that's not progression just for the top tier of the society. That's progression for like the masses as well.
Okay, so I would just like to ask one thing. Like, I remember when I was 8 and I went to my first boarding school, my dad told me that I'm not leaving you here just because I needed some different education for you, but I'm leaving you here for your overall development.
Yeah.
And that somehow stuck with me. And I made sure that I participated in everything. So I had a very hands-on education for myself.
Sure.
So don't you think, given the right motivation and given the right direction, any school in India
Yeah.
can be like a Gurukul?
While I think that we can seek inspiration from the Gurukul system that existed, I think benchmarking your education system there, I feel you need to still add more innovative technology. I think you need to adapt it to what the modern India requires. So, for example, our preschools are already AI friendly. Now, this does not mean that I am introducing kids to, screens or, adding more this thing. But if you look at it, we use artificial intelligence to enhance learning within our learning spaces. Now, obviously, traditionally that was not available. But how can we use modern technology to make learning more engaging, more interactive? So, when I'm talking about AI, so we give them coloring sheets. And now if a child colors a lion as a purple color lion with a pink color mane, and imagine if we give that child's lion to come alive and walk around the jungle. Now the child is just exploring creativity at a whole new level here.
And I'm just thinking that if we feed that kind of data to AI to learn more, what kind of lion the AI is going to create? It's going to be like a rainbow lion, which I've never seen, and then we are going to replace the unicorns with them probably. But I do get it. So in today's day and age, I believe that getting on track with technology without using too much of it for children is very important.
Yeah, responsibly using it.
Responsibly using it. Having an understanding of technology, I think, is more of an education rather than a facility what you get.
An enabler, if you could call it that.
Definitely. Enabler is a better word.
Yeah.
So what we do at my house is like, so my children, we don't give them the phones.
Of course.
But at the same time, I don't know how they somehow have the knack of looking at the password when my wife is using it and open it up. So sometimes what I do is I make them watch some kind of educational video, even if it's the Lion King, but we definitely talk about, what was the leadership value there, what was Simba thinking, what is the fun aspect there, what did you learn from it.
Absolutely.
So that becomes a very good conversation, and I think my kids have started to ask more whys. Why this, why that, and answering them at time becomes painful, but I think it takes them towards a more holistic approach in terms of learning what the technology can do.
You can't eliminate screen time. I think these kids are born in a digital era, and they will need to you would need to normalize it. But I think that equipping your child how can I use the screen responsibly is very important. Now, how can you do that? By you using the screen responsibly yourself, right? So if I see so many parents where the child is sitting right next to them and they have like their phones plastered. Now obviously the child is going to be like, clearly something in the mama's hand or papa's hand or dadi's hand or dadu's hand or nani hand there is more fascinating than me. So even I want to see what is in it.
So this has happened with me recently. My wife, I don't know when, she must be using a phone for like 10 minutes, and all of a sudden the next day my daughter wanted the phone and we said no. So she's like, mom was also using it yesterday, and that was like an eye opener, and my wife said, I'm deleting all the apps and I'm not going to look at it again, because now she's getting influenced by that.
Yeah.
So I think like doom scrolling is somehow making our children more susceptible towards the use of technology, the YouTube and everything.
Yeah, I mean 100%. So if I think children mirror parents at so many levels. So I think that when Danish and I follow or try and follow a no phone policy when we are around our child, so that we are with him or we're present with him when we're with him. But I think that again, if you're integrating or using technology with your child, then I think using that responsibly, keeping it interactive, not giving the device in the child's hand still retaining that device in your hand or another person's hand will allow you to still monitor it in a more effective manner.
Okay. Now, so you are an entrepreneurial woman.
Yeah.
You, as you said, you take 90 days to come up with a plan. If it doesn't work, then another 90 days we are on to the next plan. So it's like a long process, and I believe that consumes a lot of time, brain power, and everything. So how do you balance your personal and professional life? Because I feel that when you are too involved in the business and something is going on, you tend to be more involved. So at that time, the children must be feeling a bit left out.
So, unfortunately or fortunately, I think that women, and especially in India, and I think women in general, not just in India, are expected to run a business like they have no child, and raise a child like they have no business, right?
Very well put.
But I think for me, I treat my work as also another child. So if I were to look at it, say I treat myself like I am a mother of two, and I still need to give both of them my equal attention and love. It doesn't mean that I love one child less and one child more. I just have to manage my time better. So I will definitely fall under the 6:30 a.m. club. I try and maximize as much time that I can get. But I think that they say that mom calculator brains are very different than regular brains, because you're always calculating like, okay, this is how I need to manage my time. I am somebody who still comes back home, at around 2:33. And I have a full day with my child, and I would not replace that or give that up for anything in the world. So I think that I'm very much present for my kids, but I find pockets of time and slots of time that works in my schedule to squeeze in all the work that I need. So I think I'm blessed that I have a support system. I have a very supportive family and a husband that help me achieve this schedule.
Yeah, I believe that the support system is everything. Like if you want to start a business, you need people to talk to.
Yeah.
If you want to work on your kids and you don't have time, the support system can fill in for you.
Yeah.
So support system, what we Indians, I think, being in joint family scenarios and having a more integrate or intrinsic or very intimate culture, I think that comes with that support system. And I believe that all of us probably are not using it to the extent we should.
No, 100%. And my husband comes home at 5:30 so that I can get that 1 hour to work. I don't know how many Indian men would be able to do that. And he takes over my child like this. I'm very blessed that I live in a joint family. I have, I have like a caretaker for my child, but he still puts in that time so that I can, without any guilt, work on a project that I'm working on. And I'm super, super grateful for that.
That's so nice. So let's move forward and let's try to integrate, the skills, the financial literacy towards startups and entrepreneurs in the country today. So how do you think that Indian startups should value the skills development that has been pushed by the Indian government, or incorporate people not just with a financial background, but also with the skills that has been developed over time?
So I think, skilling is so important, and skilling is actually not the same as education and literacy. And often schools confuse the two. So often we think that we depend on education system with the idea that they are providing the skills of the future. But what are the skills of the future? So there's this like really beautiful TED talk by Ken Robinson, and it talks about that the kids that are going to school today, they're going to graduate in 2050 potentially, or 2040. What does the world look like then? What are the jobs then? We don't really know, right? So there are a couple of reports that are available that highlight certain jobs. And I mean, there were a couple of jobs that really like shocked me. Like plumbing was on top of its list, because there would be a massive scarcity of plumbing, and plumbing is like the core essential of this job. But which school is teaching kids on how to fix taps? None. Right. So I think that when we look at education and we look at skilling, very different things. There are plenty of upskilling reports that suggest that over the course of next 10 years, 80% of the individuals will have to reskill themselves about 30% of them don't have the skill set at all that they require to do the jobs that they need to do. And in India, that number would probably be higher.
I think this has also happened with the AI. Like when the AI came into place, I think everybody had to, relearn the skills of how to use AI effectively.
So I think AI is not going to necessarily, I think whenever there's a boost of technology that comes in, it generates new employment. But again, so when we looked at Facebook and Instagram coming in, or the social media burst happening like a decade and a half ago, prior to that, there was no digital media managers, there was no social media managers, but there were no big new jobs and big new companies that shaped as new technology popped in. So similarly, I think with another burst of new technology, some jobs will get replaced, but there will be an arena of new jobs that will open up. So I don't think that it's a positive or a negative. I think it's a perspective that you will share on that. But I think going back to skilling, I think it's super important to talk about the relevancy of the skill sets that you're bringing into your education system. And, at what age do you talk about it? So again, very happy that the education policy has, introduced the STEM education at an earlier age. It's allowing children to explore subjects of their interests and pursue that at a, in a more, healthy manner. But again, I think for me, my next goal next problem that I'm trying to solve is that of financial literacy. So I was shocked when I realized that, banks, the concept of a bank is introduced in grade 7. And especially with the primary year school dropouts that we know, why do most Indians have such a bad relationship with money is because we are not included in conversations with money.
Literacy also.
Yes, and we're not included even outside of school when we're at home. ये बच्चों की बात नहीं है, ये बड़े बात कर रहे हैं, right? So if the kids are kept out of a conversation, we need to normalize this conversation. We need to realize that money is not just for adults. Money needs to be broken down. It needs to be made fun. Right, piggy banks existed for centuries, right? So if you deploy financial literacy, it can actually take place at a very, very young age, and it should start taking place at a very young age, because the child starts building a very healthy relationship with money, with understanding that this is how much I should spend, this is how much I should save. And imagine if we have a generation that learns how to do this, we will have less credit defaults, we will have a healthier economy, we will have people starting to build towards their personal finance instead of at the age of 25, at the age of 18.
Definitely. So if we get financial literacy at an early age, I think we can plan our lives a bit better.
Yes.
And that should lead towards better financial success, and not just through the business or the work that you do.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about the financial literacy, when do you think is the right age to begin with financial literacy?
My child started at the age of 1.5. So he.
What did you teach them? 1.5 would be like.
So he had a piggy bank. He understood that coins need to go there. He would set up like he's now 2.5. He sets up a lemonade stall. He sells lemonade to his friends and family from that lemonade stall. So all that he earns from that goes in his fund, which sponsors the purchases of dinosaurs for him, right? Because he loves dinosaurs.
So that's I think is a very good idea, which I am also going to use with my child, to start something really small.
Yes.
And I think you're not just giving them financial literacy; it's also about some kind of entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes. So I think that so we're right now launching a new program called Little Future Founders, which is a program designed to break this notion that money and financial literacy, entrepreneurship is only for adults, right? So we only have business schools for adults and college kids. So we want to break that, and we want to make it fun. We want to make it experiential. So we we want to democratize this form of learning. So we realize that every kid learns differently. So there are storybooks which are fun, which have illustrations. So it's beautiful to look at. It's fun to read. And they have lots of learnings. We have math-based activity books, because if today you look at most entrepreneurs would be using the basics of addition, subtraction, multiplication, at best percentages and divisions, which is grade 3 से लेकर के grade 5 mathematics and nothing beyond. So I don't remember the last time I used tan theta sine, while I was making my business, or complex numbers or calculus. Of course, I'm not saying that there aren't businesses that require that, but you don't need it to run 90% of those businesses. So, are these programs only designed for entrepreneurs or kids that are pursuing and wanting to be entrepreneurs? No, I think that entrepreneurship, for me, having been an entrepreneur for so many years, I think it's about creating that mindset that I can make a difference, I can solve a problem, that action-oriented mindset, problem-solving mindset. I think that ability to think creatively and out of that box. And I think that whether you're doing a profession, a job, or starting your own business, I think you require these skill sets anyhow.
So you just mentioned that your kid is 1.5 and he's
3 now.
3 now. So
Yeah.
when he started, he
Yeah.
was 1.5 and he's selling lemonade, and he started, some kind of financial literacy, entrepreneurial spirit. So when do you think is the right time to discuss about success and failure? What success is, what failure is, what are the stepping stones, and how do you get up?
I do a lot of research around child psychology, and I obviously, being an early educator myself, I think we talk extensively about child behavior and building and designing mindset. I think that it has to start young. So there is no fixed age. I think that it depends on each parent, each family structure. It's very culturally dependent. But at the same time, I think that it goes down to something as basic as, are you apologizing to your child? So when you make a mistake, are you going back to your child and talking about, saying that, I made a mistake, I am sorry. If you're a type of a parent that's already doing that, you're teaching the child that yes, mistakes are normal. Failure is a part of human life. So I think that when you're talking about failure, it doesn't always have to be failures in like the largest of failures. It can be a small failure. It could be that I failed by shouting at you today, right? And there could have been a better way to communicate that to you, right? And I'm sorry for that. So I think that I talk to my kids and I encourage parents to talk about successes and failures early. But again, like what defines as success and what defines as failures, a child might not be able to understand the macroscopic successes and failures very early on, but they'll be able to pick up on the nuances at a very young age.
Okay. So thank you so much, Sonia, for sharing such an incredible journey and some incredible insights. The primary of them is the one I'm going to take home, which is basically I'm going to ask my kids to do something now on the entrepreneurial side and earn your dinosaurs,
Yes.
whatever they may be.
Yes.
And thank you so much for that.
Of course.
I think we all learned a lot about the financial literacy in India. We learned a lot about when we should start with the kids and how we can tell them about what is a success and what is a failure and how we can take that as stepping stones to move forward.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
And I hope to have many more fun conversation with many more great entrepreneurs in the episodes to come. Thank you.